I can't read. I mean, I can read the basic languages, but I can't read science. The dictionary definition of literacy sounds pretty simple: the ability to read and write. So, how far can scientific literacy be? Turns out it's quite different. Scientific literacy is a knowledge of science, as well as the scientific framework by which people make decisions based on facts, research, and knowledge, not on opinion or hearsay. Scientific literacy is a multi-elemental concept: numbers, stats, data, interpretation, and critical thinking, all while maintaining a reasonable level of skepticism. We have all heard about the misinformation and disinformation problem. These problems have definitely evolved within the past couple of years, and many like to blame it on the external aspects. It's the internet, social media, it's the news. But maybe if we took a look at ourselves. Our illiteracy feeds misinformation. Science is a language. Whether or not it's acknowledged by the majority, it's like a code, to which many are illiterate to.
What, in the year 2000?
An average Canadian pays $12,500 in tax every year, in which for each tax dollar, 14 cents goes towards the ISED program. This stands for Innovation, Science, Education, and Development. And of the $1.3 billion allocated to ISED, $571.1 million goes towards science and research. This is not to say that the investment towards research doesn't pay out. In fact, Canada holds 9th place in science research internationally. So the question is, if Canada places 9th place in science innovation, how illiterate can we really be? In this case, the apple doesn't fall far from the tree analogy doesn't really work. Advancements in the research world are ultimately limited to the researcher population, and it doesn't get equally shared to the public. This barrier is created by a system of something I'd like to call passive gatekeeping. Now, how does access contribute to science illiteracy? We've heard of these big-name science journals like the Nature and the Cell. They work to publish research articles for supposedly all to access. Well, not everyone, only those who can pay a small fee to access and read journals. If you want to see more than just an abstract, then welcome. Or actually wait, maybe not. Science articles are exclusive and journals are able to continue to make a profit through their business model. It's called the customer pays business model. But most times a small fee is not so small. It's not to paint science journals in a bad light. They in fact perform some crucial functions by producing documents in different media, doing editorial and design work, marketing the material, getting readers to connect to writers, and so forth. And all of these functions of course have costs. But ultimately this business model where the readers have to pay in order to access journals is what's creating this gatekeeping culture. And you might be asking, what's gatekeeping?
I definitely think that the definition of gatekeeping is keeping people out of a community that doesn't want them or doesn't see them as value. I think it manifests in different ways. So in the scientific community, it would manifest in a way that is very alienating to people who aren't necessarily in that world already. So using big words, big jargon, using the scientific classification of a plant instead of just saying poison ivy, things like that are used as a tool to alienate people, and it really just makes the person sound smart, but it doesn't really make your argument any smarter because nobody really understands what you're talking about.
In this case, scientific journals are able to keep out a large group of people who don't have the means to pay subscription fees to read articles. Although universities provide students free access to science journals, there is the rest of the population that still needs to be accounted for. A while after making this video, I had a conversation with Dr. Trisha Mahtani, where she mentioned something quite novel and interesting to myself.
Interesting. The reviewers are voluntary. The publishers pay a fee to publish the paper, and then you have to pay a fee to access the paper. So either the publishers pay extra to make the paper open access, or if you're with a university or an institution that does research, they will pay a fee to access a journal's papers.
Okay.
So yeah,
you get to choose if your paper is public, kind of.
if you have the money, yes.
Some publishers can pay extra to journals to make their articles public access. In the same way, universities pay journals to provide article access to their students. So it's a choice made by the journal company or the researcher to make their papers free access. But it does come at a price, and not everyone is willing or capable of paying. These conversations with Dr. Trisha and Joelle got me thinking, was the system ever set up to teach science to start with? So I did a deep dive on the education curriculum, specifically in Ontario. The basic subjects are outlined in the biology and chemistry curriculum, like metabolism, anatomy, cycles, reactions. But in another section, I found 4 out of the 268 pages dedicated to scientific literacy and critical thinking. But these 2 topics were under a title, which was called Some Recommendations When Program Planning, which in simple terms means it's not mandatory. And this isn't only true for Ontario. So if not in high school or elementary, then where will those who do not pursue a science-specific field become science literate? Science literacy is interdisciplinary. It becomes an important skill in fields that you would least expect it to be. So take it from Joelle, who practices environmental journalism through her podcast, A Future for Us.
So as we hinted on about before, you practice science journalism, specifically environmental journalism on your podcast, A Future for Us. I wanted to know, what were the learning curves you might have experienced when you do research and then produce these podcasts? And like specifically, how did scientific literacy affect your performance?
Yeah, scientific literacy is definitely something I focus on in my podcast, because my podcast is aiming to tell stories and publish research about social journalism, environmental journalism, and science communication. And since my audience is not just my colleagues in the scientific world, I want it to be accessible to everyone. So I can say, hey, this is what's going on, this is why it's bad, this is how it applies to you. Because that's the most important part. That's why people don't really pursue science, because it's like, why is this important in my life? It's really important that we can tell people, hey, and simplify it in terms that they understand, so they're not surprised by our academic definitions or jargon, and kind of intimidated by how much or how little we know.
That's true. I feel like sometimes you find journalism is actually pushing science forward to the public, and that's where I kind of see the bridge between them. And having journalists who can be science literate is really important. So then you don't end up with these clickbaity headings that took one sentence from the article, just pushed it out. And that's where I kind of feel like I see misinformation.
So how can science literacy become a part of your equation? On the brighter side, like any language, you can learn it and refine your skills.
So there are some really awesome people on TikTok, people on YouTube who do science communication and science literacy. And that could be content that you consume once in a while, and that could be your daily dose of science literacy and just learning how your world works. Or if you're just curious, Google whatever you're thinking about that day and be like, wow, it's pretty cool learning a new fact every day.
Through the use of resources like YouTube, attending journal clubs, self-exploration, practice, and I mean a lot of practice, you can also check out free access libraries like PLOS. Another amazing way you can do this is by following researchers who are active on Twitter and passionate about science communication. And an alternative solution is accessing preprint versions of already published articles. And of course, translating science. The world of science communication is so vast and specialized. And in the description box, you can find some more links for other science communicators. And hopefully, after a lot of hard work and in the near future, you can say to yourself, I can read. Thank you to my lovely guests, Joelle and the Black Studio, for hosting this interview, as well as Dr. Trisha Mahtani, who I had a whole discussion about the publication process in a video series called Trusting Science. Check out Joelle's podcast, A Future for Us, and all her socials will be found in the description box down below. As always, keep translating science. Bye!